Friends Tribe. If you will give a thumbs up or either digital or real thumbs up, that would be super cool. Good to see all of you here. And if you are from the Exchange Tribe, if you'll give a thumbs up, digital or real, some people are in a little bit of all of that. So really, really cool. Awesome. So as I said, we're going to actually jump off the call with a quick connection. And Laura, we're going to do groups of 3. So if you'll 3 and mix everybody up here so we can get lots of new people talking to each other. We are going to pop into breakout groups so that we can, 1, check your tech and your audio, and hopefully convince some of you to turn your video on, because some people don't like to have it in the big room, but they'll turn it on in the small room. So that's one thing. Get you guys connected to each other and thinking about the topic of negotiation, because we literally have the world's best negotiator on the call with us tonight. So I want all of us to be thinking about this topic of negotiation in the breakout rooms. And once we have a quick conversation with each other, that typically gets us in a really good heart headspace. And then we're ready to receive all the amazing learning that we are going to get from Chris tonight. So if you guys are with me, if you'll give me a double thumbs up. Awesome. Cool. So everybody grab your pen and you can just wave it up in front of the camera. And hopefully you got something that you can write on as well, because you're going to want to take a lot of notes with Chris, and you're going to want to take a lot of notes right now as I give you some time to reflect before you go into these breakout groups for probably just 5 minutes. It's going to be a really quick check-in. All right, so I want all of you to think about some negotiation that you have going on right now in your life, or that needs to happen sometime really soon in the future. It could be a business negotiation. It could be something in your family. It could be something in your community. It could be something new that's arisen out of this whole pandemic that we're in. It could be something that's been dragging on for a really long time that you're still trying to figure out. Whatever that negotiation is, I want you to reflect on what it is. And then there's a couple questions I want you to go a little bit deeper with. One of them is, I want you to think about what is the best possible outcome that you can imagine in that negotiation. How could you make this like a total win-win for all the parties involved? So that's one thing I want you to think about in terms of this negotiation. And the second thing I want you to think about is, how can you show up in the negotiation to ensure that you get the highest and best outcome for everyone involved? So I'm going to throw on some background music for you guys and give you a chance to reflect for just a minute on those questions. Let me turn up the music for you. Think of a negotiation that you're currently facing in your family, in your business, in your community. What's the best outcome you can imagine? Total win-win. And then how can you show up to ensure that the best outcome is what actually happens? I'm going to give you guys maybe another 45 seconds to a minute to reflect on that. All right, maybe like 20 more seconds. Get down your last thoughts there. What's the best outcome you can imagine? Total win-win. And how are you going to show up? All right. Looks like most of you guys got your thoughts down. If you didn't get anything down, that's okay. You're going to have an opportunity to share in your group, so you can just take those thoughts into your breakout groups. So here is how this is going to work. You're going to get into groups of 3. There may be an odd group of 4 in there. And what's going to happen is everybody is going to have about 2 minutes to share. How many minutes are you going to have? Show me how many fingers. All right, awesome. 2 minutes to share. And you want to share what the negotiation is, what the win-win is, and how you're going to show up. That's what you're going to share. So everybody shares for 2 minutes. And then if you have extra time left, I want you to have a little dialogue around what are the themes that we're noticing between all of these negotiations? What are the things that are standing out as being common threads? Or maybe there's something that's particularly energizing that somebody brings up and you just want to continue conversation on that. Point is, keep talking around this whole idea of negotiations as you're in the breakout groups. So you're going to have about 2 minutes each. So we're going to give you about 5-6 minutes in the breakout groups. It'll be quick, it'll be tight, and then we're going to bring everybody back, hear from a few of you, and then we're going to jump right into the interview with Chris Voss. So in just a moment, you're going to see a blue button to go into a breakout room. But let me ask you guys, how many of you have been into a breakout room on Zoom before? Raise your hand. All right, looks like most of you. All right, cool. How many of you have never been in a breakout room on Zoom before? All right, cool. This is a good crowd. Everybody's pretty familiar with all of this, but you might not know how to teleport into your breakout room. So I do want to teach you that. Some of you might know though, because a lot of us are doing this work a lot these days. So everybody hold your hands up to the screen, interlace your fingers, and then do this like cool wavy thing. And as soon as you see the blue button on your screen, pop that, go into your breakout room, everybody shares for 2 minutes, and we'll bring you back in about 5-6 minutes. See you guys on the flip side for an insight from your breakout group.
Okay. It seemed like in our brief sharing that all three people came to the conclusion that like being super clear with the other party and themselves on what they wanted was important. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because how are you going to communicate if you're not clear with yourself? And if we are like trying to telegraph our wants and desires and expecting the other party to be mind readers, what is our chance of success?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that, Lindsay. Appreciate that share. All right, I think I saw Tamar with her hand up. Tamar, if you want to go ahead and jump in.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say, I feel like there's a lot of power in the listening. And I just noticed that even having a group where you don't know one another and you're just saying, God, this is up for me, and just people listening and just kind of the feedback is so powerful. And it just reminds me that when we don't know where to go, that in conversation that we can find some solutions in the listening of one another.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that, Tamar. Really appreciate that share. Felicia, see your hand up if you want to just unmute yourself and pop in.
We were the group of 4, and I thought it was really interesting that out of all of us, there are some really life-altering moments coming up. Oh, so wow. That was kind of interesting and unusual that so many people were packed in one group. Like, how'd you do that, Laura? That was amazing.
Oh,
big
super
moments
cool.
coming up for a lot of people.
Oh, thanks for that, Felicia. I really appreciate that. Awesome. Tucker, you want to jump in and then we'll hear from maybe one more person?
Yeah, we had just some consistent themes across really words that are all around the other person. So like compassion, not coming across as if I'm right, but understanding, empathy. Those just these words that are like the other person involved, the other party involved type of words. So I appreciated some of that theme that came up in our small group.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Tucker. We'll hear from one more. I see Evan with his hand up. So Evan, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, so ours similar to, I read the name, the distillery that just spoke.
Felicia.
Yeah, Felicia. I couldn't remember it from listening, but I could from writing. So there's an exchange tip. As far as communication goes, and showing up, creating a bigger pie, having the mindset of we're all looking for the same goal at the end of the situation, and that's to increase value, increase the benefits. So how can we all help each other to get there, as opposed to trying to take a bigger piece of the pie each individually? How do we create the pie to be bigger so everyone's piece is larger?
Awesome. Wow. Thanks for that, Evan. Really appreciate that. Cool. Thanks for all those shares. So we're going to jump in right now to our featured guest, Chris Voss, who we're super, super excited to have here. And just as a quick reminder, this call is brought to you by the GoBundance Women's Tribe. And our very own Dr. Jamie Hope, who had a personal connection with Chris. They have a pretty funny story about how they met. We will share that save that for another day. But they have a really funny story about how they met. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, and she's going to introduce Chris. And then just so everybody knows, we're going to be fielding questions in the chat. So as he is talking, if you want to send in questions, we're going to have the chat to where it only comes to the host and co-host. And that way we can make sure that we're theming the questions and able to get those back to Chris in the Q&A segment that we have here at the end. So Jamie, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I mean, he hardly even needs an introduction, as this community is full of huge super fans who have read the book, watched the master classes, and all of those things. So you guys know that Chris Voss is a legendary FBI hostage negotiator, used to those kind of high stress, high stakes situations. And he managed to take the amazing lessons that they learned, forged in the fire in the field, and show that it can be used in any situation. It can be used in relationships, it can be used in business, it can even be used to score your delicious very own Salsa Red Pearl Toyota 4Runner. Right, Chris? Having had the absolute blessing to meet Chris and hang out with him at Genius Network events, I can tell you that he is the real deal. He's just like this in person. He's brilliant, honest, genuine, fun, and really, really tall. So, Chris, you've got a grandbaby coming. You've got, you're doing all these amazing things. It's so great to see you again. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Jamie, it's my pleasure. I'm grateful for the connection. Thank you very much.
All right. So now, as a lifelong hostage negotiator, you're drawn to those tense situations. Now, there's a lot of tension in the world right now with the pandemic and all of those things that are going on. Are there any things that have changed in negotiation or should change with respect to this pandemic situation?
No, nothing's really changed. It's a little bit, the negotiation tools, the negotiation skills are very much like a tailor's tools or a tailor's skills. Yeah, I go in for a suit and you go in for a suit. We're very different human beings. Tailor still uses the same tools. He adjusts for us. So the tools are still there. What I love about this period of time, actually, because I personally hate comfortable inaction. I was always drawn to crisis with the FBI because it required decisions, because everything was compressed. Now, life requires decisions. Comfortable inaction is bad at all times, but we're not acutely aware of it. So we get away with comfortable inaction. And we don't realize that, we're hurting ourselves with inaction, because it chips away at us a little at a time. This is the opportunity where we're forced to make decisions. You're forced to think about what you're doing. And the opportunity here right now, I was just reading a piece that reflected exactly what I think now. We're in a period of time that everything in our world is being accelerated forward, everything we touch, by 1 to 10 years. Whether it's your social media, whether it's medical care, everything is suddenly accelerated forward, which means the gains here are massive. And it's an opportunity to jump into it and move forward. My company, almost 80% of our revenue, we made a lot of money last year, a lot of money. All in-person events, 80% of it in-person events. That got slammed shut on us. And we went, all right, so online's gonna be big. It's gonna be a bolt-on. We're gonna figure it out, we're gonna do it. Fortunately, we got a structure in my company. We're already virtual. We communicate like crazy. And so we made the pivot, and we're looking at this as extra value we're going to be able to bring to the world when we go back to being in person, because there's a lot of people are going to want to do Zoom calls. They're going to find out how effective it is, and they're not going to want to leave their house because they can get stuff done. So, nothing has changed except we're more acutely aware that comfortable inaction is bad.
I love it. So you guys feel free to, as he says, amazing drops, wisdom bombs like that, tweet them, put them out on social media. share these words of wisdom. And let's have a little honesty time. How many of you guys have ever found yourself stuck and comfortable in action? Tell the truth, right? Yep. So we're going to work on getting out of that space today. And anytime you find yourself there, I want you to remember Chris's words that he just said. We need to get to that acceleration point. So in the book and in your teachings, you do list all these tools. And I've had people ask me, are the tools, is negotiation different for men and women? Or is it a different way that you apply the same tools?
Boy, there's a loaded question, huh? All right, so let's go head on at a couple of things. And I'm going to say something, first of all, to all you ladies, that's going to piss you off. Why do you want to get paid the same as men? Why are you limiting yourself? Men are mediocre. Men are average. You guys could do better than that. I mean, think of me as your brother or your dad. And if you said, I want to get paid the same as a man, I would say to you, you're setting your sights too low. So is there a difference for negotiating for men and for women? There's a rumor out there that women get penalized for negotiating more than men do. Women get penalized for bad negotiation more than men do. That's not my problem. I don't teach bad negotiation. That is, in fact, if you're going to go out there and you're going to be as big a jerk as a man is, you're going to pay the price. And I don't teach that. So I got nothing to do with that dynamic. The other thing that we have found to be ridiculously fascinating, which we're still trying to figure out, we think we kind of know why. Women pick this style, the black swan method, up faster than men do. It was staring us right in the face for a really long time. We didn't see it right away. And then we had a fair amount of data that women were getting to success faster than men were adopting it faster. There's certain aspects to it where there's no comparison in the performance ratios. And they happen to be in some of the more difficult, emotionally intelligent, complex application of the ideas where the women outdistance the men significantly. So and then in hostage negotiation, I always used to get the question in law enforcement, because it's law enforcement, largely the percentages are more men than women. Somebody say, are women better than men? Are men better than women in negotiation? And my stock answer was always, I don't care if they're a man or a woman, they just got to be good at it. It doesn't make any difference to me. And so we started looking at this thing, and I went back. The founder of the FBI's hostage negotiation program is a guy named Tom Strentz, and Tom is still on the planet. He's one of the sweethearts. He's God's gift to the universe. And thank God Tom is still around. So I reached out to Tom and I said, this is what we're seeing. Women are picking up faster than men. What do you think? And Tom went, I always thought women were better. So I'm like, I should have asked a long time ago. I'm sorry I didn't bring it up sooner. So differences for men and women. Now, why are women better at this? To get better at this kind of negotiation, which a lot of it is really counterintuitive, it requires you to step out of your comfort zone. And when we teach in-person training, when we talk to people, the very first things that we start going through is prepping people to get out of their comfort zone. Collectively, we figured, by and large, as women are still plowing forward in business and breaking into new levels and generating all these new areas, you guys are used to being uncomfortable. You're like, hey, discomfort, that's my daily life. I get comfort every day. I go through more crap on a regular basis than a man has any idea what we're dealing with. You guys have no idea. And being able to not be fazed by being uncomfortable is what holds people back. And men get rattled by it. I mean, we got all these bad examples around us. We got all this status quo of men everywhere. And so we just do what the other lemmings do, and we're comfortable, and we don't realize that we're mediocre at that point in time. And men get used to being comfortable, and so they get thrown by being uncomfortable. And sort of collectively, internally in my company, we think one of the reasons why you guys pick it up faster than men do is because you're not rattled by being uncomfortable.
Nice. But there is some hope for the guys. They can pick this up eventually.
Yes. All is not lost. One of my favorite phrases, when I first became a cop, Kansas City, way back when, and, I don't know, but, back in 19, there there were almost no women in law enforcement. And the discussion was always, do women belong in law enforcement? And I can remember one of the women that I worked with early on who was really kick-ass. Somehow we got onto the conversation and she said, look, I have no illusions about the competency of all women nor the incompetency of all men. I thought, all right, well put.
Nice, nice. I love it. Okay, so you have something called a negotiation one sheet.
Yeah.
And so in the GoBundance tribes, we use one sheets to help with our, you know, our financial futures, our health, our bucket list adventures and stuff like that. So we're super ready to embrace this. So can you teach us about it?
Well, you know, it's basically a prep model, you know, and it's kind of a warm up. Like if to create a breakthrough moment in the negotiation, you get the trigger, that's right, out of the other side. I mean, a genuine that's right out of the other side is game-changing moment. Neuroscience backs it up, nature, nurture, the history of living creatures. I could lay out why it's a game changer. But what we want you to do when you start out in the negotiation is summarize the situation. A great summary will get you that's right. So we ask you to summarize right off the bat. It's to kind of get warmed up. You're getting ready to get into the game, whatever the game is. You got to loosen up a little bit. So try to summarize the situation. Try and call out a couple negative emotions in advance. Try to call out a couple positive emotions in advance. You're going to need to call them out in the midst of the negotiation again. So this is just getting the synapses fired up. And then, and I heard you guys talk about it already, you know, what's your goal? Figure out what your most optimistic outcome is. And your goal then is to beat that. Now I can lay out for you intellectually why it's not possible for you to know the best outcome if you're human. Like even Warren Buffett, when he sits down, it's not possible for Warren Buffett to know the best possible outcome. I can lay that out for you intellectually. There are a lot of people that can't accept that. I'm smart, I know the situation, it is what it is. You know, that's limited thinking. But there's no way you can possibly know the best outcome. So we got to get you setting your sights high and then feel that you can beat that. And at that point in time, you should be asking yourself, all right, how do I beat this? I'm in a positive frame of mind, but I don't know how to do this. Well, what you've just kicked into gear mentally is you're 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind, and you process more information and you see patterns more quickly if you're genuinely curious. It's a performance hack to be genuinely curious. So if you can kick those two things into gear, you will in fact discover the nuggets, the black swans, that'll give you a better outcome in the interaction.
Nice. Chris, I love how you teach about how people can be an excellent listener and what a difference that makes. And that just those skills, the empathy, the curiosity, and how huge of a difference that can be in any type of outcome. Now, what do you do? People said, how do you use the emotions if you're really emotionally attached to the outcome?
Well, you want to, so emotions, when people start using emotions in terms of if they're bad, let's draw a fine line. It's not emotions that are bad, it's negative emotions. Positive emotions are actually a boost to our performance. You're 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind. You want to be in, so positive emotions are to be enhanced, negative emotions are to be diffused or eliminated. The crazy thing about negative emotions, concern, fear, stress, all these are different versions of fear. When you kick into negative emotions, which you don't kick into negative emotions, that's actually your basic mode. Our default mode is a survival mode, and survival is basically negative. Success is positive. We're not wired to be successful. We're wired to survive. When you're in a negative mindset, you're more convinced you're right and you're dumber. Which, think about that double whammy that happens. There's a saying out there, if you give a speech when you're angry, it'll be the greatest speech you ever regret. You're convinced you're righteous. You're convinced you're right. And you're dumber, which now you're in a downward spiral because your thinking is constricted. There's no shortage of neuroscience experiments that have totally proven that this is utterly the case. Bad decisions from negative emotions. Enhanced performance from positive emotions. So having an understanding of the two of those, what's this have to do with listening? First of all, when you're listening, you got to parse out the emotions that are coming off the other side. If you got to lay down a bet just like you would at Vegas, and we live in a Las Vegas world. We don't live in an ivory tower world. You live in a Vegas world. You got to play the odds. You're playing the odds that the other side's going to be in a negative mindset to start with. Now, the counterintuitive move for everything, and this is why people that negotiate this method get to success faster than anybody else, is you get rid of the negatives simply by verbally observing them. And the 2 millimeter shift is from the denial to the observation. And the analogy that we use on a regular basis is the elephant in the room. The negative thinking is the elephant in the room. Nobody ever got rid of the elephant in the room by saying, that elephant ain't there. Don't look at the elephant. There's no elephant in the room. When there's an elephant in the room, you start saying, there's no elephant in the room. Don't look at the elephant. The people that you're with go, are you out of your freaking mind? What's the matter with you? There's an elephant in the room. Either you're lying to me or you're stupid. Whichever one of those two things it is not good for me. And now I'm rattled as to whether or not I can do business with you. Now, because so many people have tried to get rid of the elephant in the room by denying it, they learn by default that ignoring it was a less bad option. So most people want to pretend like there's no elephant in the room. No. But then the other side, if there's an elephant in the room, they say to themselves, there's an elephant in the room. What's the matter with you? Don't you see it? Am I crazy? Are you crazy? What's going on? But at least it wasn't as bad as when you said there wasn't an elephant in the room. Now the nuts thing, and this is actually backed up by neuroscience, is if you go like, there's an elephant in the room. It's right there. As a matter of fact, it's a big, huge, horrible, scary elephant. And people look at the elephant and they go like, no, it's not that bad. You know, the heck with the elephant. As a matter of fact, I may get up and hit it with a stick and knock it out of the room myself. Observing the elephant and even overemphasizing it diminishes it radically, dramatically. And there's neuroscience that backs this up. But nobody knows that because nobody does it. We did it by accident in a hostage negotiation. We thought it had to do with crisis situations. And then Danny Kahneman came along and won the Nobel Prize for behavioral economics in 2002 and talked about how negative thinking distorts people's view of reality. And we said, hey, you know, we've been calling this out. Maybe it works. And then probably about no more than 5 or 6 years ago, the neuroscience has backed it up completely. They've done neuroscience experiments where they've intentionally inflicted negative emotions in people by showing them pictures that cause a negative emotion. Might make them sad, might make them feel lonely, might make them feel afraid, whatever, it doesn't matter. Show them a picture of a little puppy dog in the rain, something, you know. And then they just said to these people, while they have them in an fMRI, which is a device around their head that watches the electrical activity in their brain. And we know where the negative emotions are housed in the amygdala. It's been mapped. And so they show people the picture, the amygdala lights up, and they simply say, what are you feeling? And when the person self-labels, self-identifies, every single time they called it out, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm lonely, I'm concerned. Every single time it was called out, the electrical activity in the amygdala diminished. Every time. Now, the amount of diminishment will vary. Sometimes it's a little and sometimes it's a lot. But the point of it is that calling a negative out, just identifying it, labeling it, diminishes it each and every time. The follow-on question that everybody gets is, what if you call out a fear that they don't have? Do you plant the fear? What do we do to get rid of diseases? What's an inoculation? You give them a taste of the disease, and the body's immune system kicks in and defends from the disease from that point forward. Calling out negatives in advance inoculates people from feeling the negatives in the next few moments. And that's our big accelerator when we're coaching people, because if I'm getting ready to say something to you that I know is going to offend you, I will say, this is going to offend you. And you'll go like, wow, wonder what he's going to say. Is he going to insult my parents, my ancestry, my clothing, my children, my dog? The amygdala kicks into gear and flashes all this stuff through their brain. And then I say, I can't make the deal with you. And you're going to go, that wasn't that bad. But I bet you can. So now let's talk about what the problems are. Bang. That's how we accelerate past the negatives. We call them out in advance, and the negatives never happen.
Who is loving this? You guys, this is amazing, right? I see so many people taking a ton of notes. This is incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome. Hey, Jamie, we have a couple of questions in the chat that I'd love to bring up for Chris. And then if we have an opportunity too, we actually have a scenario that somebody wants to play out. So I'm combining a couple of questions here, Chris, but it's around this idea of online negotiations. So a lot of these negotiations are happening, I'm guessing, on Zoom or on FaceTime or whatever. So is there anything that needs to be different, being that it may be more difficult to read emotional cues? So it was online. And then someone also had a question about negotiations in writing. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on those.
I say the online is awesome. First of all, you should never be in an important negotiation by yourself. You need another set of ears, another set of eyes. You have got somebody else in there to whack up the different aspects of the negotiation. That's the way most teams do it, and that is really wrong. Because my son Brandon and I get on a call, and I've got implementation and he's got this. Then when I'm talking, he's not listening. He's getting ready to talk. He's doing me no good. So you should never be there by yourself. What you will get if there's multiple people on the other side, the person who's off focus, the people that are not their primary spokespeople are going to give you insane amounts of body language. I mean, they are not going to feel the gaze on them at all. And they will twitch and jump, and they will act like somebody who's off their meds. And you will get so much phenomenal, unguarded body language. What we typically do is we get on a Zoom call. I will tell a really bad joke. I'll say something like, I'm famous. We call them dad jokes.
Oh, God. Come on, give us one.
So I'll say, what do you call a humpless camel? Humphrey! Now, I'll tell that joke because I need to know the other people on the call on the other side that are going to give me all this body language. They're going to go like this. And I'm like, all right, so my team now knows, pay attention to that person, because every time we hit a nerve, they're going to twitch and they're going to look around and they're going to look away and their head is going to rock back. I'm like, that person is unguarded. And we come off of Zoom calls all the time, and my son will say, did you see, Eric, when you made that statement, I thought Eric was going to throw up. There's all this great body language on these Zoom calls that are just not there, because when we're in person, people are at least a little bit conscious. But when they're on Zoom, they are not conscious at all. And they're going to give you phenomenal reads.
That's really cool. What do you have to say about anything that's done with text or email in terms of negotiation?
Look at your texts and your emails as if you were playing chess. Would you make your next 7 moves in the same communication if you were playing chess? No, you would not. But everybody does that in emails. And the crazy thing is, everybody hates reading long emails, and everybody writes them. So your email should be, if your email is more than 5 sentences, there's a pretty good chance it's too long. What do we do in our emails? We try to land one point, period. Whatever that point is, the opening of the email is not unconditional positive regard. It is prep for the point. And typically the point is going to land negatively. So my opening line in my email is going to be, you're not going to like this. This is going to sound harsh. And I'm going to lay out whatever the negativity is. And I'm going to finish with the true and accurate, unconditional positive regard that I would have started the email with. That's got to go at the end. Now, this is not the sandwich. Do not mistake this for the sandwich model. This is not the sandwich. The last impression is a lasting impression. Whatever would have been true and honest and decent that you could have said at the beginning, you might have said, look, the reason we're communicating with email is because we've had a tremendous relationship for years, and we would love for this relationship to continue for the next 20 years. That's probably true. If you're communicating via email, no matter how contentious the negotiation is, you would love to work things out where both sides are happy. If you're communicating, that's true. And it'd probably be what you would say at the beginning. It's got to be at the end. Has to be at the end. Whatever negativity you got, it's got to go after the people are prepped for it. I'll give you an example. We had a bunch of video that was shot by a guy that we really like, and the sound was horrible. Not only was the sound horrible, it was horrible twice. And it turned into a rat's nest trying to fix the sound, and we were very upset. And not only did I not want to pay the guy the money that we owed him, I wanted all my money back, and I wanted to put in days and days and days of effort fixing the sound, which was going to cost him a massive amount of time and money. So I sent him an email saying, this is going to sound harsh. Everything you've done for us, the sound is horrible. I am asking myself why I don't demand every dime we paid you back. Our problem is we really like you. We enjoy working with you. We would love for this relationship to continue for the next 10 years, and we wish we never had to go to anybody else. And then I said, how do you want to proceed? He asked for all the video back. He promised to rework all of it and recut all of it and do everything that was humanly possible. He agreed to come out and shoot another day of training for us, where if we provided a sound guy that we trusted, and he was going to do it for us at cost.
Wow. I would really hate to be in a negotiation with you. That's what I'm sitting here thinking. Man, that's awesome.
Well, I will tell you that we want a long-term prosperous relationship with everybody we do.
Yeah.
And so look, I want you to be wealthy. I want you to brag to people about the money that you made doing business with us. And with that is, if that's my objective, you're going to want to do business with me.
Yeah.
Nice. Before, I know, Dare, you've got a specific case that we're going to hit. I don't
know if we're going to have time, but we'll see. I think we have one more question we can probably answer, then we want to wrap it up. So,
but to underscore the point of this, the deliberate practice, the going over this, the doing the one sheet. Now, Chris has legions of students out there doing these negotiations. So heaven forbid you come up against one of them, you better be ready, or you could be one of them, because there are you've listened to the book and all those things, but until you actually practice it and do it and go head to head with Chris and his team, you're not going to be ready. You're not going to be as better at crafting as you could be. So, Chris has tons of opportunities for deliberate practice, accepting students on the website. So we're going to make sure all of you guys have information about how you can follow up with that. And then, so we'll do one specific example. And Chris, this is going to sound really selfish. You're going to be upset. Would it be completely ridiculous to ask you to stay on for a few extra minutes so we can share our best teaching points and praise with you at the end of the call?
Somehow I find myself magically persuaded. I don't know what it is. I have to agree. I feel so good.
That's right.
That's really awesome. Oh my God, that's so awesome. So Jamie, do we want to open it up for the example that we had from Julie in our GoBundance Women's group?
Yeah, was it Andrea or Julie?
I think it was Julie. Yeah, she said she was willing to jump in and share. So Julie, if you want to unmute yourself and give the specific example. And by the way, Chris, I think we can do all of this and still finish really close to the top of the hour. So we won't keep you on too much longer. But Julie, if you want to unmute yourself and share what your question was.
Sure. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So my question is around COVID and lease negotiations, specifically on the side of the person being in the lease, trying to get out of the lease. My specific example is trying to get out of my lease for the place that I live in. And I used your book example word for word when you're negotiating the lease for the apartment. Failed miserably. So what did I do wrong, or what can I do better?
Well, you know, there's we got a little bit of a different approach in this. And first of all, changing strategy doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be successful. I mean, best chance of success is not a guarantee of success. And I'm coaching somebody through a negotiation that I thought was going bad recently, and I bounced it off one of my colleagues, Derek. And he said, well, we're successful 93% of the time. This might be one of the people you got to call a SWAT team on and have them shoot him. So, best chance of success. I can offer you some thoughts. It's not a guarantee of success. You might have done as good as you could have. What we're in the midst of, kind of with COVID now, people are much more in survival, desperate mode. You got to be much more aggressive, calling out the negatives in advance. And we, you know, got examples of this in several of our online, the blog articles, The Edge on the website. You can go there and you can look it up. We've got a number of videos where we walk people through this. And it started with one of our clients called us up on a phone and said, this is a shit show. The people that we're dealing with are scared to death. They think that this is going to take them down. They can't see anything outside of this. They're desperate. They don't know they can make payroll. They're worried about being able to pay their bills. How do we negotiate this? I said, you start by saying all that stuff. You get a hold of somebody and you say, this is a shit show. You're afraid that this is going to destroy your life. Right now, you're worried about whether or not you're going to be able to make your mortgage. You ain't even worried about whether or not you can send your kids to college. You're not sure you're going to get through the next 30 days. You're worried about going bankrupt. You're worried about being able to feed your family. Call out their fears aggressively. And you know what they are, because everything that I just mentioned right now, everybody knows that's what's going through everybody's mind. So just be really aggressive in calling that out. And then you got to shut up. You got to let what you said sink in. Now, they got to give you some sort of indicator it's okay to go on. If they don't, you have more fears that you have failed to call out. And if you've done your list and you run out of things to say, then your next thing is like, and I haven't even tapped into half of what you're worried about, because you want them to feel like that it's okay communicating the rest of their fears. You got to get it out of their head. You got to do as much as you possibly can to diffuse it. You got to keep on this trail until finally they go like, what is it? Now they've given you permission to go on. Now your ask is going to seem really selfish and self-centered. So you got to say that, look, this is going to sound really selfish and self-centered. It's going to sound like I don't care about you at all. This is going to sound like I think I'm in a life raft and I'm trying to throw you overboard just so I could swim. Because they're going to think that based on your ask. Let that sink in. Now you ask a how question. We call this a thought-shaping question. This is kind of like a bank shot in pool, and you're going to hit 2 banks before you hit the ball. How do we work our way through this so we don't destroy each other? And we put ourselves in a position to pick up the pieces successfully after this is all over. Now, what you tried to do there is you got to head them off at the pass for mutually assured destruction. You know, the old description of why we didn't go to war with the Soviet Union back in the 1980s, because everybody was going to die. We could go to war at any point in time, but everybody was going to die. You don't want to get into mutual assured destruction with anybody. You can't tell them that. So you got to tee it up with a how question. How do we work our way through this so we don't destroy each other? You want to get them to thinking like, yeah, I don't want to get into a death struggle here. And then the next part of that question is, we are coming out of the other side of this at some point. Everybody's going to have to pick up the pieces, and you're going to look back on who allowed you to get through this with the least amount of scars, and those are the people that you're going to want to do business with. The future is coming, and we're going to look around and see who's left, and we're going to want to do business with those people. And you got to plant that thought in their head also, so that we can pick up the pieces and collaborate after this is all over. That day is coming. You can't tell anybody that. You got to drop it in their head with a how question, because how is deferential. How makes people feel safe. It doesn't make them feel backed into a corner. If you can pull this out of the fire, that's the way to pull it out of the fire.
Oh, that was really awesome. All right, let's rub our hands together. We're going to throw Chris some energy from all that, for all that amazing wisdom. All right, rub your hands together. Rub them really, really, get them warm. All right, here we go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Throw the energy at Chris. Ah, you got it. That was freaking awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody get your pens out. Everybody get your pens out. Wave it up in front of the camera. We're going to do one last really quick reflection, and I want you to fill in the blank here. Chris, the greatest gift that you gave me on this call was blank. The greatest gift that you gave me on this call was blank. I'm going to put some music on. I'm going to give you just like 30 seconds to think about this. And then we're going to share some love with Chris. Some love and some learning. Chris, the biggest gift, the greatest gift you gave me was blank. About 20 more seconds. All right. So we're going to open it up. I'm going to open up the chat first. So if anybody wants to just throw some love into the chat, you can do that. And then I would love to hear from 3, 4, 5 of you, what was the greatest gift that you got from Chris in about 30 seconds or less. So if you want to go ahead and raise your digital hand, it's much easier for me to find you under participants. Go to raise hand if you'd like to share. Love to hear from 3, 4, 5 of you. All right. I see Josh's hand up, so we'll go to him first. Josh, if you want to unmute yourself.
Your music so yeah, Chris, I thought it was amazing when you said you should never be in an important negotiation by yourself. It made me think, what isn't an important negotiation? And how often am I trying to judge whether it's important enough to have somebody in it or not? I kind of came to, I should just always have somebody with me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that, Josh. Cool. We'll go to Sharissa. You want to unmute yourself and give some love to Chris.
Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I'll make mine super quick. I think all of us have been taught the sandwich, and I love that you taught us to start with, you're not going to like this, and to end with what you would have started with in the positive frame. So that was mega useful. Thank you.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, maybe 1 or 2 more shares. I see Angel's hand up. If you want to jump in and share some love with Chris, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, Chris, thank you very much for this. And what I learned from this, one big thing is to call out negative emotions instead of ignoring them or denying them. Thank you.
That is really awesome. That is really awesome. You got lots of love there in the chat box too, Chris. Anybody else want to express the greatest gift? You can raise your hand really quick as we're closing out here. Anybody else want to jump in? Go ahead, Christine. Unmute yourself.
I thought it was an interesting nugget as far as having multiple people in the negotiation, and the person that is like the wiggly bobbly like clue giveawayer is just knowing that there is going to be somebody like that and keeping your eye on it and just like reading them like a book. That's great.
That's awesome.
I'll chip in on that. I am that person that gives stuff away. So it's so good to know that even though I'm not the one who's communicating, or I just might be person number 2, that if I don't have my poker face on, it can still tip somebody off or tip the hand in another direction. So
just as far as listening to you from perspective on the other side, like if I were negotiating with you, how would I feel and what would I, how would I show up? So that was a great insight that I got from this call. So thank you so much for your time and sharing this hour with us.
That's awesome, Laura. And Chris, I'll let you have the last word. What would you like to leave this amazing group with?
Look, you guys have the ability to go out there and make great deals that not just benefit you, but benefit everybody that you deal with. And that's an awesome position to be in. And so just, make great deals. Never at anybody's expense, always with people. And life is really good. So thanks for spending time with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, everybody. Laura, can you unmute? We're going to give him a huge round of applause. Everybody give him a big round of applause.
Thank you.
All right. Fabulous, everybody. Thank you so much for being on. We appreciate you being here with us, Chris, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a great evening, guys.
Thank you.
See you later, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thanks for jumping on, everybody.
Awesome.
You guys rock. All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.